Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice Podcast, episode 275. I'm your host, Kim Newlove. My guest today is Dr. H, also known as Hussam Hamoush PharmD. Dr. H hosts the Sports Pharmacy Podcast. This is episode number 6 in my Pharmacist Podcasters series. If you are new to this series, welcome. My guests and I talk about podcasting so that you might be inspired to host a podcast, be a podcast guest, or just use your voice. By the way, if you are interested in starting a podcast, I can help. I help pharmacists start podcasts. There are 2 ways to work with me. The first way is my self-paced online course, and that focuses on planning your podcast before you launch. The second way is one-on-one coaching. You can find a link to that self-paced online course on thepharmacistvoice.com. Click on that store tab and you'll find it there. For private coaching, go to the same website, which is thepharmacistvoice.com. Click on the contact tab, leave me a message, either a voicemail or a typed message. Next up, let me tell you a little bit more about my guest, Dr. H. Then I'll roll the interview. Dr. Hussam Hamoush is the owner and operator of Stonebriar Pharmacy and host of the Sports Pharmacy podcast. Dr. H has been a wellness pharmacist for over 10 years. At Stonebriar Pharmacy, Dr. H consults for hormone replacement therapy, low-dose naltrexone titration, and topical pain interventions. He purchased his pharmacy in 2019, right before the COVID pandemic. Over the last 5 years, he and his team grew the business. They have now expanded into a new location where the business continues to grow. Dr. H was born and raised in North Carolina. He attended Virginia Commonwealth University School of Pharmacy, which is located in Richmond, Virginia. Upon graduation in 2012, he moved to Texas, where he met his beautiful wife, and they currently live. Dr. H is an avid sports fan, a strong supporter of Bayern Munich Football Club, the Carolina Panthers, and the UNC Tar Heels. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Dr. H. Hi, Dr. H. Welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast.
Kim, thanks for having me, man. I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome. I am so happy to be with you today. There are not many people in pharmacy that talk about sports. So we're going to
Right?
talk about your podcast, the Sports Pharmacy podcast today. This is exciting.
Heck yeah, man. It's been fun, been an unreal journey, just, going from, being a pharmacy owner to just having a voice to meet cool people like this, man. It's been great. So it's for sure fun.
How often do you get to be on the other side of the mic?
This is, you'd be surprised. I think this is my third one this week, but it's super rare. I don't know why this week all of a sudden anybody want an interview, but I would say probably I can count in 2 hands how many times this has happened.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. And then were they other pharmacists who interviewed you?
So I actually was just on a mental wellness podcast recently, talking about men's mental health, which is obviously I'm something very passionate about. And then another one was on punk rock music. It's random, I know, right? It's crazy.
Well, that's quite a change from
Yeah,
mental health and pharmacy to punk
yeah,
rock. That's
yeah.
cool.
It's gotta be like a well-rounded thing. You know what I mean?
Nice. Now, do you include Kiss in punk rock or are they just regular rock?
That's like metal more. Like punk rock is more like
The Ramones.
yeah, like more angsty, like they're angry at something. You know what I mean? I was really big into that back when I was in pharmacy school. I went to VCU in Richmond, and it's a really big punk rock scene there. And that's part of the reason why I went there, is because of the music scene. And that was back when I had the full mohawk, the angry everything. It's surprising they took me to pharmacy school, to be honest. Shout out Dean Yanchik from VCU for taking me in.
That's very interesting. Do you play an instrument too?
I'm a singer. I was a
Oh,
singer.
no way.
Yeah, we actually had a cover band in pharmacy school called Controlled Substance. So
That is an
yeah,
excellent name. I love it.
yeah, it was cool. It was the drummer and guitarist and bassist. We all went to pharmacy school together. We were different grades, different classes, but yeah, it was fun.
Very cool. Did you guys have any markings on your instruments like C2, C3,
That should have been
C4?
so good, but we were so broke, man. We were just happy to just play shows for like fraternities and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool.
Oh, this is great bonus material. I
There you
love
go.
this. We're off to a good start.
Good.
But back to your podcast, though. Why did you start the Sports Pharmacy podcast?
As we were going through COVID, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, Kim, I saw a lot of just bad information out there. And that's part of the reason with the internet, the big boom that is coming from is that with a bigger platform, more people can have more things to say. And I just got really tired of just reading just bull crap out there, man. I really didn't enjoy it. And Todd sat me down actually after we met at Diversify RX. Shout out Lisa Faust. Um, we had a one-on-one meeting. It was like, hey, like, is there anything that you're into? Anything that you like? I was like, well, I like sports and music. Like, how could I import that? And I guess he really wanted to do as a whole sports pharmacy side of things. So I became a sports nutritionist, and I wanted to dive deeper into how it can help direct this to both pharmacists and to patients as well. And the podcast just really just took off, man. I went back and listened to some of my first episodes. They are awful. They are so bad. I was like, man, how crazy is it? How long we've come like this? And so when now we're about 18 months in, so it's been a fun journey, and I got a passion for sports. You see, I'm wearing my jersey, which I've always worn during interviews, and yeah,
I know that a lot of athletes have their superstitions. They have
yep.
lucky socks, and I was listening to the book Moneyball, and there was a guy that had a lucky rock that he put on the pitcher's mound every time he pitched. Is this your lucky jersey that you're wearing today?
I try to mix things up. It depends on the. So today's Wednesday, so I wore what I call just like the mint green one. So it's really dependent. I mean, so this is a Bayern Munich jersey. I'm a big fan of this. This is my squad. They just played yesterday, and so there's a sign behind me. I don't know if you're fans of that video or not, but it says "Mia sen Mia" in German, which means we are who we are. And so it's just a motto thing that's like we're gonna be just like you, Kim. We're gonna be who we are no matter what we do.
I like that you're bringing a little bit of yourself into your podcast. Now, when I first started listening to some of your episodes, I expected the content to be just jam packed with like healthcare professionals talking about sports or nutrition or supplements or whatever. But I almost feel like you just bring an element of sports, like what sports have you been playing lately? There could be anything. So can you explain how does the sports part come into the content of your episodes?
Whenever we look at an athlete, it has to be a 360 view. We have an athlete that is going to have, mental relapses. They're going to have an athletes that have like you mentioned, superstitions, nutrition issues, social media problems that may come out. So when you look at the wide view of sports, it's more about the person as a being rather than just the one element to what they can bring out. And so with the Sports Pharmacy podcast, I want to expose to my listeners to everything and anything that could be related to sports. I had a social media specialist come on that said the importance of how she takes her athletes and basically improve their social media presence, just something similar like that, and it could relate to pharmacists as well. I think I had a two-part episode that was the ADD episode when there was an Adderall shortage, and it was like, hey, you don't need that Adderall anymore. These are your alternatives of what you could take instead. And so we wanted to make sure it was more of a well-rounded thing around sports because there's only so many things you can talk about with nutrition. I can tell you all day how well to eat, but if you're not going to figure out the issue that's underlying, then what's the point of fixing it?
I listened to an episode recently. I hope I don't mess up the name. It was Dr. Hannah, I
Oh,
think.
my boy Danny, yeah, that's my friend. Yeah,
Yeah, it
how
sounds
cool
like
is that?
he's in your geographic area, right? In
Yep,
Texas.
right here in Frisco. Yep.
There you go. And you guys were talking a little bit about how he is a physician, a surgeon,
Hmm.
and he helps with gender transformations,
Yep.
right? And I
Yeah.
was waiting for you guys to get into talking about how, sports participation has changed because of that. So I just want to challenge you to bring him back and maybe talk about that and, get into it.
He gave me three things not to talk about. Danny's my good friend. I mean, we've been friends for a long time, and he's originally from Massachusetts and moved here in 2021. And there were three things he was not allowed to talk about. It was restroom stuff, politics, and sports. I was like, all right, man, that's fair. We don't have to talk about it. Really cool episode, and it's very difficult for some people to have to deal with the repercussions that come from that because I received some already. But it's really important that people see the other side of what other people have challenged, what challenges they have to go through as well. So shout out my boy, Dr. Hannah.
I really appreciated in that episode hearing about your background and his background too, about
Yeah.
how you're both Syrian Americans,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Yeah. We come from very different backgrounds. He grew up in the Northeast. I grew up in North Carolina. We were both raised by immigrant parents that moved here in the '80s, and there's very different challenges that me and him have to go through versus what our parents had to go through. And I didn't know a lot of it until me and him actually had that conversation. So, like I said, it's sports pharmacy, but we're able to talk about really anything we want to talk about.
Well, yeah, that's your right as the host. And
Yeah,
I think we as the audience benefit from that because we get to know you. I think
exactly.
being vulnerable is part of building a relationship.
Have you? I have to ask you a question now. Have you done a lot of solo episodes?
Yes, I have. Actually, in my 4-year podcast anniversary episode, I talked about how I had done practically 50-50 solo episodes, 50% either interview or panel discussion episodes.
Nice.
Why the question, Dr.
I
H?
I just recorded one and I am like so self-conscious about it. I was like, man, people that come on are a lot smarter than me. I wonder if anyone's gonna really care about what I have to say. So we'll see how it goes. I think I only have one solo one that's out right now, and that was on the opioid crisis, just because that's near and dear to me. Um, and it did pretty well, but it wasn't my best work, but we'll see how this one goes. I'm gonna publish it next week, hopefully. So we'll see.
I like that you did a solo episode, and I would encourage you to do more because you can build your brand, your authority, your thought leadership on whatever topic that you're talking about by doing a solo episode. And then you build your network and improve relationships with people when you do those interview shows. Maybe you're bringing somebody on your show that your audience needs to hear from. So you're building a relationship with your audience, but then also you get this relationship with your guest. So it's all good, Dr. H.
All
Solo
right.
show, interview show, panel
This is on you,
discussion,
Kim.
whatever you want.
If it doesn't go well, Kim, it's on you now.
Okay. All right, I'll take partial credit
All
if
right,
it
fair, fair.
if it goes badly. But I have found that my solo shows give me the latitude to express who I am and what I care about. I like poisoning prevention education. I do an audio newsletter quarterly, so every single season,
Oh,
winter, spring, summer, and fall. I do all kinds of things that I don't think everybody else is doing. I talk about autism awareness every April. That episode's coming out on Friday. And
nice.
so maybe over the years, I'll have so much content that I'll actually just write a book. I can
There you go.
transcribe those episodes, turn it into a book. I'm trying to give a little bit of me to my audience so that they understand why I came to use my voice professionally. A lot of it is a pain to purpose story. I have this child who's nonverbal, he has autism. Watching him struggle to communicate has inspired me to use my own voice and quit complaining. I have this one thing that nobody can take from me. So even if I can't work in traditional clinical practice, there is something I can do with my voice. And people do listen to those solo episodes. Oh, and drug name pronunciations too.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, you would not believe how many people want to learn how to say semaglutide from me. It is my most popular episode.
That's
All right,
awesome.
I'll leave the solo episode
No, man,
topic
I
alone.
listen. Anything like you're just by having me on here, you're helping me so much. So just any information I'm gonna steal from you, Kim, I'm going to.
All right. Yeah, we're collaborating. This is
There you go.
good. This is good. But I want my audience to learn a little bit more about your podcast. So I'm going to keep coming at you
Yeah,
with
let's
questions.
do it.
All right. We talked about what each episode is about. It could be sports, it could be anything. So we
Mhm.
got that. And then do you know who your audience is? I mean, do they communicate with you? What do you know about your audience?
So one of my recent things now, and you're gonna laugh at this as well. As I told you, I'm a big Bayern Munich fan. I've recently found a niche where I can go on TikTok live and people watch me watching games, which is the craziest thing in the world. It's like a watch along is what they call it. And I built a Discord where people can join in and join me and like chat about the game or whatever they want. So it's that has grown so much that I feel like that's the best way I've been able to connect with people. And from that, they're learning, oh my God, this guy's a healthcare professional as well. Like I see how angry he gets and he's still willing to take care of people. It's cool. It's fun to see. So it's really opened the demographics as far as people that have interacted with me. And I just want to help. If I can help 5 people to do anything, I'm happy with that. If somebody can laugh at me or come in and talk smack about my team, I'm perfectly cool with that. If people always have their own struggles, and most of the time when they want to talk smack, it's because they have something struggling inside of them. So if they want to come do that with me, I have an ego. I'm confident you can come at me all you want. It's perfectly fine. So just interacting with cool people like that, and the Discord has been. I don't know if you have a Discord yet, Kim. I would really urge you to do it.
No, I don't.
Setting that up was the best because I can have it like I have a moderator on there that dictates if someone's spamming stuff, they can go and it's the best way to interact with you because they can message you on there and you can get to it later. And it's not like they have any of your personal information. So it's and I post my new episodes on there anytime I get a new TikTok, so it helps with views and everything. So um that's been the craziest thing. The watch alongs has been crazy. Like for example, over the weekend, Bayern Munich played a game against Heidenheim, which is in the middle of nowhere, on a team that nobody has even heard of, and 2,000 people were watching me at one point. I was like, "Yeah, it's crazy." I was like, and just watching me scream. That's really it. And my wife's just like, I got so tired of watching the games alone. I was like, I got to do something. So I was like, I'll just watch it with people on the internet.
That is creative. I like
Yeah,
that. You're building your audience in a totally different way.
yeah.
When it came to thinking up this podcast, the Sports Pharmacy podcast, who did you hope to reach with your podcast?
It's really a wellness motivated. So I want to be able to teach the general public how to be well. And part of our new program that we have rolling out here pretty soon that we'll announce it right now. We have something called the Active Wellness Network, and it's a website that we built to have a group of like-minded wellness experts all in one place to dish out information to people. I wrote a book, a short story called The Seven Pillars of Wellness, and it highlights the seven ways that you can live well in your life, anywhere from spirituality to environmental, really all across the board. So I have a motto that I've stuck by my entire life is reasons come first, results come later. So I built what I want to do is help people first, and then whatever comes with it, man, comes with it.
So you are trying to reach people, not just pharmacists. You're
Right.
trying to reach people who care about wellness and want to
hmm
be well, right? Fair?
Exactly. Yep. Easy.
Okay.
And if they can yell at me, but watch some sports with me, perfect. Let's do it.
I love your confidence. That's great.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think I wouldn't think about judging you. I would just it's entertainment,
Yeah,
to
exactly.
watch people watching something else.
I had a doctor watch me and she called me out. She's like, I can't argue with you ever again. I said, yeah, it's probably good. Don't.
I watched this doctor named Mama Dr. Jones. She's a board certified OBGYN, and she watches these clips from this TV show. It's called I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant or something like that.
Hmm.
And I enjoy watching her watch those clips because she's kind of horrified. There's somebody in the dark standing on the bow of a boat having a baby because they didn't know that they were pregnant. And just your face right now, I see your eyebrows going up, your eyes are getting wide. That's kind of her reaction too. She had never seen it before. So we're watching
Dang.
her watch it for the first time. And she'll stop it every once in a while and comment on it, which is different from what you do watching soccer or football, as
Football,
the
right?
Europeans will call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is
Yeah.
fun to watch other people watch stuff. So if that's what your audience enjoys, keep giving it to
I
them.
guess so, man. It's just I've been trying to figure out how to incorporate more wellness stuff into it, and I really tried. I was like, hey, let's look at pre-nutrition and see what every athlete's treated differently on a team. What does it look like? Their nutrition timing and stuff like that. But it's hard. I want to add some sort of education behind it. So I want it to be fun and games, but I want you to learn something too. It's funny you mentioned that. I have I'm on our YouTube. I do a pharmacist react series where I watch a video and I just make faces at people like you just saw. I don't know. I think it's my face. I just make faces at people. I think that's what it is. I don't know.
You are expressive, sir.
There you
You
go.
are expressive. All right. Well, thank you for telling me about your audience and their, many angles that they look at you from. I want to know, what do you think your audience gets out of your podcast?
Specifically out of the podcast is more of how to express yourself and learn ways to treat yourself better. Be it through like for example, if I gave Dr. Hannah his platform, and somebody out there may be struggling with these issues around transgender or gender dysmorphia, that they have someone they could reach to. And that's part of the reason when I do these mental health episodes is just that they know there's somewhere that you can get help. And so every episode, my core being with every episode is I make sure I write down, what is every episode the listener is going to get out of it. And I think like I mentioned, the solo one that I'm doing is called mind body connection. So how your body connects to your mind. So if I can teach one person to do one thing better in their life, then I think I've won. That's really it.
All right. I'm curious to listen to the solo episode because I'm going to be
I'm
cheering
nervous,
you
man.
on. Oh, come on. When does it come out?
Next Thursday, a week from tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. So that would be the 18th of April. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. 18th of April. Yep.
All right. Say somebody listens to that episode. What's the call to action? What do you want them to do after they have pressed stop? The episode's over.
Oh man, that's a good question. I haven't thought about that much yet. I did. I still have to do the intro, and I think the intro is going to be super important because that's going to be the hey. That's a good question, Kim. You stumped me, man.
I
What
make
is the
people
point?
think, but we're trying to inspire people. If they want to
That's
start a
true.
podcast, maybe
Yeah.
these are things that they should be thinking of too.
As we're going into summer, and the whole fad with semaglutide, in that we want people to be more comfortable in the bodies that they have, and know that the way that they feel could affect how you're eating, how your body's metabolizing things even. And so if we look at a patient just from their numeric values and not looking from the core issue, and one of the things I highlight on there is a case study around a 52-year-old man that had issues with diabetes, blood pressure, everything, but wasn't diagnosed as a major depressive disorder. And the provider that met them diagnosed that first, and everything fell better behind it. And so it's more of just looking outside the box and not just looking at someone as a lab value. There you go.
Very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Hopefully.
I think every podcast should have some sort of like a review wrap up call to action thing going on
I'm gonna add
because,
that to my list, Kim.
yeah, there you go. I think that makes for good content because once somebody presses stop and they're moving on to whatever's next in their life, you need to give them homework. Like use this episode to feel better about yourself, that sort of message. It sounds like that's what you're going for, right?
I'm typing notes as we're speaking right now, Kim.
All right, go right ahead.
Cool.
Dr. H, your audience definitely benefits from listening to you, but how do you benefit from having a podcast? What do you get out of it?
It's been cool because a lot of people in Frisco, the city that I'm in, really cool city, right outside of Dallas. We have FC Dallas is right down the street from us. The Cowboys headquarters is also right down the street. So really a lot of sports that's going on in the city, which is fun. I was at the gym the other day, and I have a T-shirt that says "Sports Pharmacy Podcast" on it. On the back, it says "Dr. Mix-a-Lot," which is my handle. I know it's weird. And somebody approached me and said they didn't know that was me. Like they listen to my podcast. I was like, really? Like at the gym, like at 5:30 in the morning at the gym, some guy approached me, and I was like, well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. So that was cool. And I like told you before, if I can help one person be better, then I'm good, man. That's just fun for me. And yeah, someone to watch the games with me at Bayern Munich games, even a plus.
Very nice. You went from being one kind of a rock star to a different kind of a rock star. Do you
Okay, yeah,
realize that?
that's true. Yeah, you're right. I guess I'm more famous as a podcaster than I was as a singer. Thank God.
Isn't it interesting? Speaking of being kind of a rock star as a podcaster, isn't it interesting how podcasts go international almost immediately? What's your
Yeah.
experience with that, Ben?
Have you looked at your data, like as far as like what countries reached?
I
There were some
do.
countries I've never even heard of before, which blew my mind. I was like, I'm pretty sure someone's hacking into me, but no, it's true. I made one shout out on my podcast saying, shout out to, I don't remember the name of the country, and they commented me on Twitter, like there was like, that's me, and I was like, what the heck, are you real? So that's super cool to see. And me being a Syrian background, I have cousins of mine that changed my language into Arabic for people in Syria to listen to, which is cool. And yeah, like my wife is Turkish, so it's like we have a diverse background. We're able to get a big reach, and the website's super sweet that tells you who's listening, where, when, and stuff like that. And my second most country is Belgium. I was like, what's it like? I don't speak any of the languages, so that's really cool to see. And yeah, man, shout out to the people in Belgium.
Very cool. I have some listeners in Belgium too, but I think
Yeah,
USA, Canada, and India are my top
really?
three. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Australia used to be among the top five, I guess, too, and then the United Kingdom. And I was thinking
Okay.
maybe it's English-speaking countries, but man, those drug name pronunciation episodes really get around the world.
That's a good one. Yeah, because I'm sure
Yeah.
that's like it's easy for them if they had to like take like an exam for here and they have to hear how it sounds. I guess that makes sense. My third country was Austria.
Nice.
Countries, yeah, never been, but shout out to Austria too.
Nice. Munich isn't too far from
That's true.
Austria.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, one day they'll invite me to come out there. That'd be fun.
Dr. H, I am looking forward to introducing my audience to your podcast. So, where can they find it?
Kim, Sports Pharmacy Podcast is everywhere: Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio. It's anywhere that you get your podcast, you'll find Sports Pharmacy Podcast. Shout out to the Pharmacy Podcast Network for everything they've done to help. I'm assuming they help you too. They help me a lot. Not yet, right? But
Todd has extended the invitation. God bless him.
yes,
I'm too stubborn to join. It wasn't for me.
I get it, man. It's been real because he's really opened my podcast to a huge amount of people, and it's helped me get opportunities that I never thought I'd be able to get with some really big players in the pharmacy game. So that's fun, especially like being a pharmacy owner and trying to run a pharmacy, work in the pharmacy, and host a podcast and have a social media presence. Man, it's impossible. So the Farmers Back in Network, I'm not going to sell you on them, Kim, I swear, but they were a great help to me just as a busy professional. But yeah, anywhere you get your podcast, it's on there. If you want to follow me on social media at Dr. Mix-a-Lot, that's my TikToks are fun. Most of the time it's just me yelling about something, passionate about something, who knows? And then yeah, YouTube and everything.
Thank you for that. I will put the links to all your social media handles in the show notes. And is there a website for the podcast? Sounds like the Pharmacy Podcast Network might be your website. Is that right?
Actually, it's on our Stonebriar Pharmacy website. If you go to stonebriarpharmacy.com/podcast, podcast is on there too. Got to build that SEO, Kim.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Sure. It might drive business to your pharmacy or traffic
exactly.
anyway. Yeah,
Yeah, it's been yeah.
I like it. See, I can learn things from you, Dr. H. This is
I
great.
mean, it's simple things, and Kim, you would be really good at this. It's just if you can get the right people out there with the right voice, no pun intended. It's been super cool to just be able to teach cool people like y'all, man. That's all it really is.
Nice. I do have a business with a podcast on it, so I guess we are
Nice.
similar in that
There you
way.
go.
But you
Yeah,
have a pharmacy, so it's a
yeah,
little bit different kind of business, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sell drugs. That's all we gotta do.
That's all.
That's it.
Yeah. Um, you, I think, are the first pharmacist podcaster who's with the Pharmacy Podcast Network to be in the Pharmacist Podcasters series here on the Pharmacist Voice podcast. So,
Dang.
is there anything you would like to tell my audience who may be thinking of starting a podcast about your experience with the Pharmacy Podcast Network?
Yeah, like I mentioned, man, they helped with marketing. As long as you come in with a positive attitude and a willingness to work, they're willing to help you the best that they can. And Todd, God bless him, he has to deal with the crazy that is Dr. H. So he kind of helps level me out, helps refocus me, and helps me with helping basically building my personal brand. So if you want to start a podcast, I urge you to start it alone first and decide, hey, if this is for me and you want to grow it, then sure, join another network. But if you want to talk about something, somebody will listen. I have seen people watch other people do woodworking on the internet. So there is something to talk about. Find a way to talk about it.
Nice. It sounds like Todd has been a mentor to you, and
Yep.
that's all good. Yeah. Did you start your podcast first and then join Pharmacy Podcast Network?
Yeah, I was about 6 months in, and then I joined the PPN afterwards. It's just my time was just it was taking too much time for me to edit, and I tried to hire an editor, and I fired him pretty quickly because they just didn't do the quality that I wanted. So they just make things a lot easier for me.
Very good. Well, thank you for keeping it positive. I have to ask on the other side of the coin, though, are there any words of caution or any words of wisdom you'd like to
Mhm.
share with my audience about joining the Pharmacy Podcast Network?
I'll keep it broad about joining any other network. You have to remember you're going to start working as a team, and for a person like me coming from an entrepreneur background where I did everything myself, and then having to rely on somebody else to do something for you, it's a little bit of a tough situation transition. And so, if you want things done the right way, you're going to try to do it yourself. You can also teach someone to do it the right way that you like. And so, if you can teach, it's a learning process for everyone. So patience is the key. Um, and like I said, they can deal with my crazy, so they're great.
I think you bring a lot of good energy to your podcast. You have brought good energy to my podcast, which is
Appreciate that,
great.
Kim. Yeah.
Would you like to give any other advice to new podcasters or anybody who might be a guest on a podcast at some point?
Be confident. Like if you want to talk about something and you believe in what you want to talk about, be confident about it. Even if you're dead wrong, just be confident about it.
You know, that's good advice for me because with my drug name pronunciation series, I really have to own the pronunciations because the
Yeah.
way that I say it is not how everybody else necessarily says it. I'm just literally going by the book, by going by a dictionary,
Yep.
and some people may disagree with it. There is a drug name that I've been avoiding, but I'm going to have to own it when I talk about it, and that's citalopram because some people say citalopram. It is actually, I believe, in the USP dictionary online as citalopram.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I think I've been saying it wrong my whole life. So how do you say the other one, the escitalopram?
That is the way that I say it, but I don't know
Uh,
what the dictionary says. It might be
escitalopram.
escitalopram. I don't know.
Whoa.
I know. And see, I'm trying to own this right here on the air without having done all of my research. That
Yeah.
is not the way that you're supposed to podcast. Do your
Sorry.
research before you press record. See, don't do what Kim is doing.
Yeah, just make sure you do your pre-work. Don't do what we do, we just wing it.
But I appreciate you saying you have to be confident and own it because when you put it out there, people are going to listen.
And people will be mean to you. Let me just go ahead and tell you. Let me go ahead and break all the news to you. People will find a way to be mean to you, but it is what it is.
Can you give an example of something mean that somebody has said to you or done to you?
Yeah, they said I was too fat to be talking about sports.
No kidding. Was that like
Yeah,
an
man.
Apple Store review type thing or what
No,
do you
it was
call
on
it?
my social media. They tweeted at me. I was so surprised. I know. I was like, bro, I was like, first off, I'm huge. Second, fine. What do you want me to tell you? I'm 37 years old. I'm a type 2 diabetic. What do you expect from me? All right, I'm trying.
Oh, I think you're adorable. I love the
Thank you.
beard. You've
Yeah.
got a full head of hair.
I have a mohawk still. See?
Do you say, oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
still
he
got a
does have
mohawk.
a
Yeah.
mohawk. I can
Yeah.
confirm. All
Yeah.
right. Well, yeah, there are haters and haters are going to hate, but I like
Mhm.
that you have thick skin and you just go on with your business anyways.
Yeah. Be
Much
confidently
respect.
wrong, right?
I think you're doing it right. I enjoy your
Appreciate it, Kim.
podcast. And like I said earlier, when you had Dr. Hannah, is it Hannah, right?
Hannah. Yeah.
Okay, when you had him on, you let us get to know you too. And there's no wrong way to do that.
Mhm.
People come back because they like you in addition to what you're talking about. So you're doing it right. Keep on doing what you're doing.
Appreciate you, Kim. I got for you to learn from, so I'm gonna try to keep up.
Well, hey, pharmacist podcasters are kind of a small pool of people. We got to
Mhm.
connect, keep in touch, and help one another out,
Of
right?
course. Yes,
And
ma'am.
inspire the next generation of podcasters and podcasters.
Podcasters. That's a good way to do it. I like that name.
Yeah. Trademark symbol.
Yeah, right. Make sure you do
Podcasters.
it. Yeah.
Awesome. As we start to wrap this up, is there anything else that you would like to talk about? Maybe you have something to promote here in 2024?
Fagron Genomics has a new test coming out for pharmacogenomics called the Sports Panel. I will be heading up the training for that for the entire company, which is super cool to see. Be on the lookout for that in the next couple weeks. Today is April 10th, so just be kind of looking out for that in the next 2 weeks, something like that. But yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on.
My pleasure. What is the name of that company again?
Fagron Genomics. They have a huge line of pharmacogenomic testing, and one of the things they're adding now is the sports panel.
Got it. All right. Thanks for mentioning that. And did you happen to land that gig because of your podcast?
No, it's just because I'm pretty. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, because of the podcast.
That's
Yeah, Michael
awesome.
Willoughby is the president of the company. He's a close friend of mine now. So
Very good. Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome things can happen because of your podcast.
there you
So
go. Yeah,
that's an inspiration right there. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the Pharmacist Voice podcast, Dr. H. You take care.
Kim, thank you so much.
Thanks again to Dr. H for being my guest today on the Pharmacist Voice podcast, episode 275. We talked about podcasting, but we also had some very fun sidebar conversations. That happens in podcasting, and it's one of the best parts of the job. I hope you enjoyed both the talk about podcasting and the sidebar conversations. I know I did. On the topic of podcasting, I hope you enjoyed hearing about why he started his podcast, what it's about, who his audience is, and how he interacts with them. That was really unique hearing about his Discord. He talked about the value that he provides to his audience, what he wants his audience to do with the information once they press stop, how he benefits from podcasting, where you can find his podcast, his advice for new podcasters, and the monetization opportunity that he now has because of his podcast. That was a really cool way to end our conversation. Not everybody monetizes their podcast, but Dr. H is now doing that. Every interview with a pharmacist podcaster is different, and I really enjoyed this one. I hope you now feel inspired to use your voice now, maybe as a podcast host or a podcast guest or just plain old public speaking. When you hear somebody like Dr. H talking about how he uses his voice as a pharmacist podcaster, and he was talking about being a guest on podcasts too, it is inspiring. That's all I've got for you today. This has been episode 275 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. Remember to check out the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com. In the show notes, I will have lots of links to the Sports Pharmacy podcast, Dr. H on social media, including LinkedIn. Go ahead and reach out and connect with Dr. H. I've got a link to Bayern Munich Football Club, just for fun. That is Dr. H's favorite. I've got a link to the Pharmacy Podcast Network, other episodes of the Pharmacist Podcaster series here on the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, my social media links, my podcasting course, and more. Lots of links today. Everything you need is on thepharmacistvoice.com. Now, one last thing. If you know someone who might like to learn about the Sports Pharmacy podcast or is interested in starting a podcast, please share this episode with them. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist's Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. I'll be back next Friday, May 3rd, with a new drug name pronunciation episode. I love those. Thank you for listening today. I'll talk to you next Friday.